Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And it's Tuesday in the NBA. We did have to miss a day on that big MLK slate for you guys, but we're back with 4 games to play on Tuesday night. Definitely want to make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. Got another game video up for you and our player props as we're doing each and every weekday this season. Also want you to head to thelines.com. You can check out all of our great written content up there and use that odds finder tool that we're using every day here to make sure you're getting the best juice back on all those U.S. sportsbooks offering you guys bets this season. Nate, let's get into this 4-game slate and then talk about our game. The 76ers are in LA playing the Clips.
Yeah, and that'll be the nightcap, a standalone there game to watch. But it opens with the Raptors +6 at the Bucks. Both teams are on a back-to-back. Raptors won in OT over your Knicks here on MLK Day, and Giannis sat for the Bucks. So we'll have to wait on the injury report for that one before we read anything into it, really. The Nets forging on without KD, -6 at the Spurs. Totals at 235 there. That's something we're looking at for player props. Then the other game we look at, Blazers are +7.5 at Denver. Totals at 233, fourth and final meeting of those division rivals. And then it's a pick'em right now. Sixers at Clippers, even money. Either way you want to slice it, and I think we both like the Sixers. I mean, the Clippers, I asked you, like, are they winning games now? Is that something they're into? I mean, they are back home now, and they've won 2 of their last 3, but it was against a Mavs team that we know what they do on the road, and that just didn't show up. Their three-pointer did not show up. And then against Houston, the worst team in the West. Not competitive against Denver, even without Joker. You were all over that. I was like, oh, man, Joker is actually out. We thought he was definitely going to play. And you were like, double down. Because the Clippers are the worst offense in the league at home. I mean, and this is the NBA. This is the NBA where points are flowing, especially a team like the 76ers, which has been all offense and, terrible defense in the backcourt when you pair Maxey and Harden. But does that matter against the Clippers, who just put Terrence Mann into the starting lineup? Are going, took Reggie Jackson out of the rotation pretty much, and they're going even more wing heavy now. And that's something the Sixers actually can defend with Tobias Harris, with Tybal off the bench if they want to throw him at either of these guys. We don't know if Paul George is going to play. That would help inject some life into this Clippers offense. But in the last meeting between these teams, he had 22 points on less than 40% field goal shooting. Was a -16. As the Clippers just pulled away in the second half. Harden now in 2 appearances with the Sixers against the Clips. Huge lines, basically flirting with a triple-double the first time, and then 20 points and 21 assists with a triple-double in that other meeting I'm talking about. Embiid also has had his way against Zubac. So, I mean, those 2 guys are, we know what they bring to the table. Just an unstoppable pick-and-roll combination, and I mean, Maxey kind of adds a different dynamic in terms of the Sixers don't just have to slow it down and score in the half court. They can push with this guy. And I just don't really know what you look at for the Clippers outside of Kawhi Leonard still being an absolute bucket and say, like, this is a something to be scared of about their offense. I mean, and Kawhi, while his offense has rounded back into form, is not the same defender either. And it's evident. I mean, one of those Harden lines is against a Kawhi-less, PG-less team, but, with them back out there on December 23rd, giving up 21 assists to a guy like James Harden, who we saw the Raptors and the Heat erase from the floor like several months prior. I mean, that tells you where the Clippers are at in terms of being that kind of defensive juggernaut that we thought that's why some people were thinking that they were a championship favorite coming into the season, is that they had such good wing defense, and it's just not there. Obviously, they haven't had an answer for Embiid. I mean, nobody really does. And the only thing to worry about here is the Sixers being 3rd game in a 5-game road trip. However, it's a back-to-back in LA, or I mean, they had an off day here, and so there's no travel involved. Embiid's props are already up here at 31.5 points. I'm definitely expecting him to top 30. and the Clippers to win, and would look at the 35 plus in a win at plus 350 for Mr. Embiid after he dropped 44 on them a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think he's happy to play against Ivica, Chamberlain, Zubac as well as a lot of these really solid offensive centers are right now. Including the Joker, who also didn't even really have to have his way with them the first time they played because no one played in the second half for the Clips. He sat out this last game. Zeke Naji came in, played fine, and everybody else as well around him. So in the post, where the Clippers have been really, really bad, that's a quick starting point as well. I mean, you talk about Embiid, 31.5 points. The Clips over the course of their last 9 games, where we know they lost 6 in a row at one point there, 29th in terms of allowing points in the paint, 29th in scoring points in the paint. So you can just own them down there. And if you have the best, let's say, best center on both sides of the ball in the league in Joel Embiid, when you combine his offense and defense and just his sort of presence there, which is terrifying. I know Joker's been good. I really don't want to get into that. I didn't mean to fall into a trap, but Joel, top 3, top 2 center in the league no matter what, and he's going to do his thing as he has been as of late. The thing that is holding me up, and I kind of started to consider it a bit more as the show was kicking off and you were reading these lines, Nate, and I was like, wait, if Paul George does play, what does that do to this? Because he could play, and it's just frustrating with his injury, because his injury is that hamstring. It's not some random Kawhi thing that, while it's frustrating, we're just kind of like, no one's trying to figure out what's going on with Kawhi anymore. We should probably do the same thing with PG. You just don't know when the hammy is going to act up. It's one of those weird things. So if he is back, I don't know what the level of continuity would be, and I would probably just feel better about an over than anything in this game at like 225, 226. If Paul George is in there, I do think that there's a little bit more offense to be had. But because there haven't been that many games that both these guys are playing at home together to help raise the level of that worst offense in the league at home in terms of 105.5 points a game, and we know what they do there. We've been talking about it every time we bring them up. Third worst field goal percentage in the league from there. At home, they're dead last in points in the paint, which is basically what they are all the time, 29th. So, yeah, I think this one, the only thing that scares you is Paul George playing. Even if he does, I still think at even money for Philly, you're still in a good spot because of what they've been since Tyrese Maxey came back. I don't know if he's helping in this regard, but the fact that they have been 12th in rebounding since he came back, it's just the last 7 games, which is since he came back, that it's crucial for them because they've been 27th on the season, which is why they've been giving up a ton of second chance points to their opponent, and all those all those points in transition, as well as they just give up. They don't get offensive rebounds, and then teams go and they're susceptible to fast break points as well. But if they're getting those rebounds, that covers up all of those issues for them, and really it's about the offense for them at that point. You might consider even looking at what their over is in this one. If the total is 226, right, like over 113, I would say that's fair. I think if you get to about 115, 116 in this game, sans overtime, then you're probably looking at being the victor there. I do see that this being a pretty close game with in the mid-teens or so. So I think that does speak to an over a little bit more, especially like I said with Tyrese Maxey in there. 7th in 3-pointers made, which is huge for them as well. 6-1 to the over since he's been back. 4th offensive rating, scoring 122.5 a game. So 5th in assists, which they already were, but James Harden goes from like 11 assists a game to 14 because he's got Tyrese Maxey, another shooter on the wing, and someone he knows he can score as soon as he gives it to them. So I'm not really going to touch the total in this one. I'm still just going to feel good right now at even money with Paul George hanging in the balance, because it's a situation where I still like the 76ers to be able to win this one on the road if he's playing, and without him, I definitely like them at even money. I might as well just get ahead of it a little bit before he's even announced exactly if he's going to play or not.
Yeah, you're not touching the over because the Clippers are still 19-4 to the under at home, because again, they don't score very much, 105 points per game, and while the Sixers have gone over in 11 of their last 13 overall, one of those unders is holding OKC to 96 points, and frankly, the Kawhi Clippers are pretty similar to the SGA Thunder right now in terms of just one guy trying to score unassisted field goals. I don't really know what else to say about their offense other than I'm just not impressed with it. I am impressed with Harden and finding his stride here since coming back from his injury. I mean, he's got double-digit assists in 6 straight road games. Really led that offense when they outscored the Clippers by 17 in the second half to pull away there. And I think they'll just be a better team down the stretch. Another thing, though, to worry about the total is that the Sixers seem like they're really pacing themselves on this road trip, and that both of their first two games, 96 pace, got to 235 with the Jazz, but then go under with the Lakers, and holding it down to a 96 pace against the Lakers is definitely something that raises eyebrows, right? And then if you're going against the Clippers, who are probably okay playing that type of half-court game if you want to play that way. Maybe we do see an under here even if Paul George is active because, like I said, he didn't really have a great game against the Sixers. We don't know how good his hamstring will be. And he does seem to help the Clippers' defense more than their offense in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That their defensive rating is way better with him in there. Unsurprisingly, it's like a doubling down on a superior force already with Kawhi out there. But yeah, the only reason I like points just because of the way that this team plays, the 76ers specifically with Tyrese Maxey out there, that 119 and a half offensive rating, even at like a 96, 97 pace, still gets you close to about 120, 122 like they've been scoring. But obviously they haven't been playing the Clippers, who are also the best defense in the league at home right now. So the points maybe not, but like I said, my play in this one is I'm hitting this, before I know what's happening with Paul George. And then let's see what happens to that spread when he gets put in the game. And maybe you get even a little bit more value on the 76ers at that point. So,
and Blazers plus 7.5 at Denver with a 233 total. Denver going for a 14th straight home win here. Portland, third game in 4 nights, so slight rest disadvantage. And they did manage to snap their 5-game skid with really impressive offensive showings against Dallas, but consecutive nights at home against Dallas, a barrage of 3-pointers, 138 points. I'm not really reading into that too much. First of all, I want to believe that Portland's getting back to their elite offensive ways. I am such a big Damian Lillard fan and Anthony Simons as well, but I don't. I think they're just regressing to the mean in terms of being an okay team. Just not elite offensively, and worse offensively on the road. 112 rating versus 120, scoring just 108 on the road versus 120 at home. And the pace is slower, and they're 16-8 to the under on the road, including 6 straight road games in which they had a pretty low assist rate. They're already average in terms of assist rate because it is a lot of Damon and Simons getting their own shot. So, Denver's biggest weakness is giving up assists at home, getting into those kind of shootouts where another team is able to match the Joker's incredible assist to field goal ratio as a team effort of some sort. But they are 6th in defensive efficiency overall at home, though, and 5th in 3-point defense. And so that's where I think Portland might struggle. Of course, this is the 4th meeting here between division rivals. They smacked the Nuggets early in the season when things were still pretty wonky, and then lost by 13 in Denver the last meeting. Simon struggled. Dame did not. Dame has been on fire in his last 5, and he's been on fire against Denver this season, averaging 35 a game. So it's just like that's why we got close to this 233 total the last time, which was 227, the final. And it's with a superhuman effort from Dame. So it's like if you look at it that way, it's like even if Dame continues to do what he's been doing, like 50 against Cleveland, 38 is what he's averaging in the last 5 years, shooting 53% from the floor. He can maybe continue that, but even if he does, like I don't know who else from Portland is going to match the Nuggets and score close to 120, which is what they do at home, but. I will say, while Nurkic fouled out in that last meeting, and he hasn't exactly shut down the Joker, holding him to a 128 offensive rating this season is actually a massive accomplishment. In his last 10 home games, Jokic has a 141 offensive rating and is plus 140. He's actually minus 10 against Portland in those 3 meetings this season. Denver does slightly go under when they're home. especially when they're home favorites. And while, you've got guys like Jamal Murray and Porter Jr. who might struggle defensively, I raised my hand when you said Embiid, best two-way center in the game for sure, because Joker, 101 defensive rating in his last five. Somehow, some way, he just keeps everybody connected on both ends. He skyrocketed to plus 170 as the MVP favorite again. Just an amazing talent. But I mean, that is all to say. I like the under more than anything. I'm a little too scared to just assume Denver's going to continue to roll everybody who comes to their house. I think Portland is the type of team to surprise you and make this kind of a trap and cover 7. So I think, what I want to look for, though, is that these two teams that know each other really well, at least one of them coming up short offensively because the other one's getting in their jersey so well.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of good stuff in there. I think to talk about, I guess, what like best bet for you, preferring that maybe the under because of the fact, like you're saying, like these teams kind of know each other enough at this point that they can at least defend that and prepare for it a little bit better. Is that probably the preferred bet by you?
Yeah, and I do worry that Portland's going to score under 110, and then I don't think you're getting over if that happens.
In which case, yeah, it also seems like leaning towards Denver, winning by at least a decent margin enough to maybe cover to the 7 that it is right now, that you can get it at. If you want to bet Denver, you can find it at 7. I know we talked about 7.5 being that spread there, but you can find it a little bit better if you want it. I do want that, to be honest. Like I'm not really scared of these big totals. I think I told you, you were mentioning that it's possible that there's a little bit of a recession coming, or back to the mean for regression for Denver at home. They just only barely beat the Magic by the skin of their teeth. Needed that last second 3 from Joker to pull that one out. Obviously failed to cover the 11 points. I call the Magic being able to cover that on a Saturday Saturday where things are just. Or I'm sorry, it was a Sunday. MLK Day threw me off. On Sunday, it's a weekend. Things are weird. Saturday, Sunday games are always weird in the NBA, and 11 points was a lot for a Magic team that was, definitely catching stride by having enough players back from, some suspensions and injuries to be back to themselves, and Wendell Carter Jr. playing really, really well as well. And the Nuggets did not take them seriously, and that's why that game was what it was. But I do see them. I don't think that Portland can get through that, under the radar like that for them. You're talking about the last few matchups for them since they've already played 3 times this season at this point, and the last one for the Blazers being the last 2 obviously being the loss. We don't really know what to make of the game on the 24th of October that they played like 5 games into the start of the season, or 5 days into the start of the season. But I think you can rely on Denver to get that pretty much close to that 120 if not over at home. It's just pretty much clockwork. Even when they were playing the Clips the other night without Joker, like you were saying, still felt good about them doubling down on them because of the fact that they have such a great supporting cast. And even when Joker's not out there to play with those guys that are just so perfectly suited, like Bruce Brown and KCP, that they added to play around him, they're also super well suited to play alongside a guy like Jamal Murray, who has been finding his own as well and finding consistency over the last 4 by averaging 24 a game in that time frame with about 7 assists, and really taking over as the point guard on this team, who is obviously happy to let Joker do his thing from everywhere else. So Joker having one more game under his belt after missing a game before that Magic game, I think is really helpful as well. In this one, I love watching he and Nurk go to battle against each other. In the last 4 games that they played against each other, Joker's looking at 23 and 9 assists and 9 boards. But Nurk as well, 14 points and 9 rebounds in there as well with 4 assists, which is also really nice when they can play around him. But obviously also you talk about Dame and what he's done. That's his resurgence over the course of the last 3, including that 50 burger, is a huge, if not the reason that this total stays at about 233, and that bookmakers seem to think that Dame can come along, bring this team along for the ride in that total. But even if he can, like if this becomes an offensive outburst, I still prefer Portland or Denver to a large degree. I agree with your really opening statements that I think the Blazers you and I specifically overvalued them a bit at the beginning of the season in what we thought they were going to be able to do as an offensive juggernaut. To your point, I mean the stats that you see, the unassisted field goal goal percentage for this team is way too high for you to feel like it's continuously sustainable all over the place. And the fact that you know I look at all these hustle stats for guys like Josh Hart and Jeremy Grant, and it's like there's just really no plays run for them. There's just go get the ball and then you can score once you have it. But that's pretty much it. As Jeremy Grant has actually been averaging a bunch of second chance points since Dame came back, about a couple of weeks ago from a small injury. So I just don't like what I'm seeing from the Blazers anymore, which breaks my heart because I was really looking forward to them being a lot better. We love a lot of the players on their team, but I believe in Denver at home to that degree right now. And if they're going to get over 120, I feel pretty good about them covering 7 points.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't know if they are, and honestly, I think if it is an over, I would think Portland covers. I mean, I don't know. If you're truly saying they're going to come along for the ride, it's going to be a shootout. Maybe it's going to go down to the wire or overtime. Like plus 7.5 is better than expecting Denver to just continue rolling whoever comes into their building, right?
But to be clear, I don't think that. I don't think they're coming along for the ride.
Well,
I think that 7 points is very
saying
fair.
One team's only going to score 108, one scores 120, but anyway,
Call it a day.
Yeah, you can take either side of this. The point is, I mean, these teams have not played with much pace in their 3 meetings this season. 95. You asked me if I think they're so familiar with each other. Really, it's Nurk and Jokic being so familiar with each other that it's like throwing a wrench in that well-oiled machine that is the Nuggets offense. And while they've still been able to maintain, both of them, an offensive rating over 122 in the meetings, the games have only averaged 237. They're slightly over. I think there's an opportunity for some regression. It's not a bet for the faint of heart here, though. I mean, we're talking 4 games here. If you want to bet on something in this game, that's something to throw out there. But I think we're more confident in the nightcap in the Sixers at the Clippers.
Yeah, and like you're saying, like this is a case of us trying, getting to the early lines, and to be honest with you, not loving much outside of that Sixers game, and not having quite as much available for the other 2 games on the slate, and really not really wanting to touch the Nets and Spurs. To be honest, the Bucks and Raptors we got to wait for. In this one, I think you can definitely look at some player stuff, which I think we are looking at a little bit in the player props. We just kind of, we don't necessarily go into any of these specific props, but you and I were looking at unders for stuff in this one, like you were saying, in the way that we see this matchup going. So, and there's just a lot, the props just led us to go I don't see that from that guy and that guy, which is also just supporting evidence for, liking an under here. But either way, to be honest, I wouldn't hit an under with the Nuggets, but I prefer the Nuggets. And if I were to do that, it would be a money line and under, to your point. I do think that their defense is also just way, superior to this Portland defense right now. So Nate, let's jump into your first one tonight, Mr. Joel Embiid.
Yeah, a guy who's 5th in a crowded MVP race, at least according to odds makers, because he's missed, 12 plus games already. But when he plays, he's just an absolute beast, of course, in force since returning from his latest injury. 33 points per game on 57, 42, 87 splits. Has a 130 offensive rating. And, he's facing the Clippers, a team that is giving up the second most points to centers over the last 15 days. And that includes a matchup with Embiid where he had 44 on 18 for 30 field goal shooting. He's had a lot of success against Zubac in recent meetings. His last 4 against LAC, 37 points per game, 11 rebounds. And that's in just 34 minutes per game, because the last time they went to the Clips, it was a blowout because there was no Kawhi PG, and both Harden and Embiid could have put up a lot more than they did. And then we saw what they did when they got another crack at this team, which is just, they're playing a lot of small ball. They're leaving themselves vulnerable down low a lot. Even if Zubac is out there, they're not completely small, but they can't handle a guy like Embiid, who's been force-fed the ball in those 4 meetings, 40% usage. And Harden taking a big step back in terms of his usage and really just trying to set up the big man. So it's 31.5 points is where we're at in terms of his prop. And if you do want to go a little bit higher than that, 35 in a win, and we both do like the Sixers here at a pick'em, that turns it into a plus 350 at FanDuel.
Yeah, I'm fine with it if you're going to juice it up that much for him to get 3 more points, because I do think the win is pretty good, in pretty good shape for Philly. like we were saying in the video, obviously want to see what happens with Paul George, and I'm banking on hitting this now that he's not going to play. If he does, I still like it, and I'm probably going to get some more once I get points for Philly if that happens, which it might not, to be honest with you, because even if he does play, this probably still stays around to pick him. But either way, yeah, Embiid to just dominate is a solid play here, against a team that is giving up the most points in the paint right now at home. So let's go ahead and talk about a game that we didn't have a game video for, the Spurs and Nets. We're not sure what to do with the Nets right now. Just don't feel that confident after their 0-2 start without KD. But a guy I feel confident in is on the Spurs, and that's Jakob Poeltl. 22.5 points and rebounds for him. That's minus 115 on DK, actually. And then a double-double for him. I would highly consider that. That gets you plus 110 for him to get that on DraftKings. His last four, we're looking at 15 points a game and 9 boards in that time. But the 27 minutes a game is what I also like, which is up from 19 in his first few back after, being injured for a pretty decent amount of time this season. 11 field goal attempts also in those last four, which is up from 8. I really like that as well. Obviously, the usage also increasing about 5% in that time frame. And I think they also know, he's on the trading block. Like, Pop may or may not like that. He's on the trading block. He has to be that, they're not going to sign him again. He's not enough for them, but he's going to be, I think, enough for somebody else that you can feel good about him there. So I think they need to showcase him and keep him at about 31 minutes that he played against the Kangs a few nights ago to try to deal with DeMontis versus Brooklyn already this season on January 2nd. Just obviously they played recently. He only had 6 points and 11 boards. I will say 11 boards in 20 minutes. And that wasn't even due to foul trouble. He was just coming back from injury. You look at his per 36, if he were to continue playing, 11 points and 19 boards is what that turns into. So I'd feel really good if he continues to get like I said, 31 minutes I expect him to. And at home on the season, he's at about 27.5 minutes a game, a few more than when he's on the road, at about 12 points and 10 boards, shooting 65%. So, Brooklyn obviously not good against centers without really a true center to defend anybody. Nick Claxton doing really solid work, one of the best defenders in the league, to be honest with you right now, in terms of versatility as well. But Brooklyn does allow the 10th most points and rebounds to opposing centers, so it just feels like a really good matchup for Poeltl to get his in a game that I think people who are watching a national team like the Nets will have some eyes on.
Yeah, I don't think you need to disparage Nick Claxton, but
not at all.
He is, like the ecosystem we see with Giannis and Brook Lopez. When one of them is out, the other one's defense suffers. And without KD, the Nets defense overall is just not going to be as good. They're also going to give up a ton more rebounds because their offense has sucked through 2 games. They've been non-competitive. And that brings us to a guy who brought no offense to the table in his first without KD. 13 assists, though, including, I think, 9 in the first quarter for Ben Simmons. And we took his prop that first game. I wanted just rebounds, assists. He threw in the points there as an option, but he did not even look at the basket. I think he will actually score 6 to 8 points here. His prop is 8.5, but I'm still going with the 15.5 rebounds, assists for Simmons. I'm not trusting him to put the ball up or try to get fouled, even in a juicy matchup against the Spurs, who are dead last in points in the paint. You can walk right in there. They're also dead last in opponents' 3-point shooting, though, so he can walk in there and kick it out to Seth Curry and Joe Harris. They also give up the 3rd most assists per game and the 3rd most steals per game, which is, I think, the best odds you find here. It's like minus 125, 130 for him to get 16 rebounds, assists. Because, again, what he did there in just 26 minutes due to foul trouble against the Celtics, putting up 22 of those. But for him to get 2 steals is plus 125. He's still a great defensive player, still a great athlete who can get in the passing lane. Had 3 steals against the Spurs just 2 weeks ago in 24 minutes. And has 11 steals over his last 5 games. Again, playing under 28. I think if he stays out of foul trouble, he should be out there for 30, 35 tonight after he rested on Saturday against the Thunder.
Yeah, and to be clear, I said over 7.5 rebounds, maybe the points, but yeah, I took the rebounds on that one just to defend myself. I continue to like him. I mean, in these spots that you're talking about, rebounds and assists, even the steals at plus money for him to get 2, I like. He's not even looking at the basket, as we know. I'm not going to get into it, but all this stuff still is solid because of the production that he's now. They're looking to him for more, and what he's giving them is more assists. So okay, that's what he's going to continue to do to contribute. And it has helped guys like Seth Curry as well, who dropped 23 the other night. So like you said, I think with those shooters out there now, with Joe Harris and Seth Curry healthy, you like the assist for him even more. A guy you got to like assist for consistently, but there's a couple of good bets for him. James Harden against the Clips, as we talked about, 6.5 rebounds for him. A bet that you threw my way, plus 110 on DK. I do like that. I also really still continue to like all points, rebounds, and assists with that man. 37.5, minus 104 on FanDuel, which is really good odds there. Like, just take the PRA consistently as well, because of the fact that like he's gonna either get 30 and 10 and whatever, or he's gonna get, you know, like 20 and 10 and 10. So he's just contributing, like we also talked about, he leads the league in terms of points scored or assisted that he's contributing to. When they played the Clips in December, in 41 minutes he dropped 20, had 11 boards and 12 dimes. And then when they played last March, in 34 minutes, 29 points, 15 boards and 7 dimes. There was no Kawhi and PG in that one. Not sure if PG's playing in this one, but like you talked about, that actually seems to impact their defense a little bit more if he doesn't play. So would love to see that happen for this bet. The Clips dead last in offensive rating at home, so we know that there's going to be opportunities for those rebounds for him to get 7. There's going to be a lot of missed shots. Harden, 24 rebounds in his last 3 roadies, so I think, you know, he is definitely looking to get those boards on the road. Also has had 35 assists, double-digit assists in 6 straight road games. So, I mean, you know, the assists, I believe, are at 10.5 for him tonight, is the best that I found. So, you know, either way, like I said, the 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists, I think you can expect him to be contributing at least in 2 of those 3, if not all 3, heavily. So,
overall, the Clippers limit assists better, but they didn't have an answer for Harden. They gave up 21 dimes to him on the road. They are much better at home. I'm a little scared of the 11 assists being a good bet. I mean, especially with poor odds. So that's why I lean towards the rebounds. Because like you said, I mean, whatever he does in terms of his scoring and his usage is down, he's really hovering around the like 7-10 mark on those other 2 things, just because he's out there for like 40 minutes and just because he's involved, you know, mixing it up and trying to become really a winning player, to his credit. I mean, he has played really well since coming back from that foot injury.
Absolutely, yeah. No shade for Harden, as he's really continued to not even transform his game. He's always been able to do this with his incredible court vision, but he's definitely taken over command as like a solid point guard for them. So that's all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along. We are going to be back to you guys each and every week this season. So like and subscribe to that page. And until we see you next, happy betting.